Luann awoke at midnight to the sound of her cell phone ringing. She was greeted by a stranger's voice. "I know who you are," the voice said. "I know where you've been," and then hung up. She couldn't place the voice. It wasn't her ex-husband. It wasn't her boyfriend. She was nervous. She sat up. Luann lived on the outskirts of a swamp, and for a moment she imagined great beasts of clay and mud rising from the depths, overtaking her back porch. She found herself stumbling down the hall towards the closet that held her father's old revolver. It was composed of silver. Its bullets were witch's copper. She dug the piece out, and the phone rang again. It was the stranger. "Why?" he asked. "What next?" And then hung up again. Luann grew frightened, but she wasn't going to take it. She walked towards the balcony, slid the glass door back, roared with the night, and stepped out, leaving the phone behind. She pointed her revolver up towards the moon and fired 2 shots. Smoke spewed from the mouth of the gun, but she stood perfectly still. Then she lowered her arm. Then she went back inside. She saw that she had missed a call. She checked the machine. It was from the hospital. It was about her boyfriend. He'd been shot earlier. The culprit was unknown. Luann dropped the gun in the middle of the floor and raced out to her car. She drove as fast as she could to the hospital and found her lover laid out unconscious in a bed. She stared at the body a moment, and before she could cry, the phone rang again. She answered, but this time there was no voice. It was just hiss and snap and static. She hung up. She stared at the body once more, but she did not cry. After some time, she returned, retreated, escaped to the waiting area, and she passed out for the night. She was awoken in the morning by a nurse. The nurse told her that her boyfriend had slipped into a deep coma. Heartbroken, Luann stood up, returned to her car, and returned home. When she got there, she was greeted by the revolver still laid perfectly in the middle of the living room floor. She stared at the thing. She walked over to it. She picked it up. She raced outside, heaved it as hard as she could out into the depths of the swamp. It sank from view. She began to sob. She returned inside and collapsed on her bed and fell asleep. Hours later, she was awoken. The phone rang a final time. She answered hesitantly. It was her boyfriend. "I'm okay," he said. "I'm okay." And she began to sob and rejoice and shout with him. She raced back to that hospital as fast as she could and embraced her lover in a knowing grip. And the only words anyone can remember her saying that day in that room with him were, "I'm sorry. I'm not the queen of violence."